The blood from Olivia Thompson's split lip had long since dried on her chin by the time the stagecoach rattled into Willow Creek, Arizona territory. April 1878 brought gentle spring breezes that caressed her bruised face through the open window, a stark contrast to the harsh treatment she had received at the hands of her stepfather back in Boston. The purple-yellow marks on her wrists remained hidden beneath her sleeves, evidence of the final confrontation that had driven her to respond to an advertisement for a mail-order bride 3 months ago. The stagecoach jolted to a stop, sending pain shooting through her ribs where they had not yet fully healed. Olivia clutched her small valise tighter, her knuckles white against the worn leather. This was her last chance, her only chance. If Edmund Walker, her prospective husband, rejected her upon seeing her condition, she had nowhere else to go. Willow Creek. End of the line, folks, the driver called. Olivia was the last passenger to disembark, her movements careful and measured to minimize the pain. The frontier town sprawled before her, a single dusty main street lined with wooden buildings, so different from the brick and cobblestone of Boston. A few curious glances turned her way, quickly averted when they noted her battered appearance. She surveyed the small crowd that had gathered to meet the stagecoach, searching for the man who matched the description in Edmund Walker's letters: tall, broad-shouldered, with a beard. Her future husband. The man who had written such gentle, thoughtful words about building a life together on his ranch outside of town. No one approached her. Olivia stood alone as the driver unloaded the last of the luggage and mail bags. The spring sun beat down, making her light-headed in her heavy traveling clothes. Perhaps he had forgotten. Perhaps he had changed his mind. Perhaps Miss Thompson. The voice came from behind her, deep and cautious. Olivia turned, her heart hammering against her bruised ribs, and found herself looking up at a man who was decidedly not Edmund Walker. This man was tall, yes, but lean rather than broad. Clean-shaven, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of the summer sky. His dark blonde hair curled beneath the brim of his Stetson, and he regarded her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Yes," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm Olivia Thompson." The man removed his hat, revealing more of that golden hair. "Elijah Hastings, madam, I'm—" He hesitated, his eyes briefly flicking to the bruise on her cheek before returning to meet her gaze. "I'm afraid I have some difficult news. Edmund Walker passed away 3 weeks ago. Influenza took him fast." The world seemed to tilt beneath Olivia's feet, her last hope gone. She swayed slightly, and the man Elijah stepped forward quickly, catching her elbow to steady her. "I'm sorry, Miss Thompson. Ed was my neighbor and friend. He asked me to meet you if—" He trailed off, seemingly at a loss for words. "If he wasn't able to," Olivia finished for him, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I understand. Thank you for coming to tell me. I'll just—" She looked around at the unfamiliar town, panic rising in her chest. "I'll make arrangements to return east. With what money?" her mind screamed. With what protection? Elijah Hastings still held her elbow, his touch light but firm. His eyes took in her split lip, the bruise on her cheekbone, and something in his expression hardened. "Miss Thompson, I don't mean to presume, but it appears you might be in some trouble." His voice had dropped lower, meant only for her ears. "If you need a safe place to stay while you figure things out, I can offer you the guest room at my ranch. No strings attached." Olivia stared at him, searching for deceit or ill intent in those clear blue eyes and finding none. Still, she had learned the hard way not to trust easily. "Why would you do that? You don't know me. Ed spoke highly of you in your correspondence, said you were educated, thoughtful, brave to venture out west." A small, sad smile touched his lips. "Besides, my sister Abigail lives with me." You'd have a chaperone, proper as can be. Olivia weighed her options, which were painfully few. Return east with no money and face her stepfather's wrath, or trust this stranger who offered shelter. I can work, she said finally. I won't be a burden. Something like respect flickered in Elijah's eyes. Never thought you would be, Miss Thompson. He released her elbow and picked up her valise. My wagon's just down the street. If you're willing, we can head to the ranch now. It's about an hour's ride. As they walked, Olivia felt the stares of the townspeople. A woman with vibrant red hair emerged from the general store, her curious gaze following them down the street. That's Marjorie Wilson, Elijah explained quietly. Runs the store with her husband. Nice folks, but the town gossip travels through that store faster than a prairie fire. And what will the gossip say about me? Olivia asked, her voice tight. Elijah helped her up into his wagon before answering. That Ed Walker's mail-order bride arrived too late and his neighbor took her in. He climbed up beside her. Folk around here mind their business mostly, Miss Thompson, and those who don't will answer to me. There was no threat in his words, just a simple statement of fact that Olivia found oddly comforting. As the wagon pulled away from Willow Creek, she allowed herself a tiny sliver of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she had found the safe haven she so desperately needed. The wagon jostled along the rutted dirt road, each bump sending waves of pain through Olivia's battered body. She gripped the wooden seat tightly, determined not to show discomfort. The vast landscape stretched around them, rolling hills dotted with sage and mesquite, distant mountains painted in shades of purple and blue. So different from the crowded streets of Boston. Been out west long? Elijah asked, breaking the silence. This is my first time west of the Mississippi, Olivia admitted. Everything is so open. A small smile tugged at Elijah's lips. That's what I love about it. Room to breathe. Room to be who you want to be without the past pressing in. He glanced at her. What brought you to answer Ed's advertisement, if you don't mind my asking? Olivia tensed. I needed a fresh start. Elijah nodded, accepting her vague answer. Don't we all at some point? He pointed toward a distant line of trees. That's Rattlesnake Creek. My ranch sits just beyond it. Not as big as some, but the water's good year-round. As they approached, Olivia could make out a modest but well-maintained ranch house, a large barn and several corrals containing horses. A small garden plot flourished near the house, and chickens pecked in a fenced yard. It looked peaceful. Safe. A woman emerged from the house as they drew closer, tall and slender like Elijah, with the same blonde hair pulled back in a practical bun. She shaded her eyes against the sun, watching their approach with obvious curiosity. That's Abigail, Elijah said. My younger sister. She's been keeping house for me since our parents passed 5 years ago. The wagon rolled to a stop in front of the house, and Elijah jumped down, coming around to help Olivia descend. Her legs felt unsteady after the long journey, and she stumbled slightly against him. His hand steadied her, strong but gentle. You all right, Miss Thompson? Yes, thank you. Just tired from traveling. Abigail approached, her frank gaze taking in Olivia's bruised face and worn clothes. To Olivia's relief, there was no pity in her expression, only a practical sort of concern. You must be Miss Thompson, she said, extending her hand. I'm Abigail Hastings. Welcome to Double H Ranch. Olivia shook her hand, appreciating the firm grip. Thank you for having me, Miss Hastings. I understand this is an unusual situation. Call me Abigail, please. She glanced at her brother. And it's not as unusual as you might think. Folks help each other out here. Now come inside, you look like you could use some food and rest. The interior of the ranch house was simple but comfortable. A large main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a sturdy table, a few chairs, and a stone fireplace. 2 doors led to what Olivia presumed were bedrooms. "Your room is through there," Abigail said, pointing to the door on the right. "Used to be our parents'. Mine's across the hall and Elijah sleeps in the loft above the kitchen." "I couldn't take your parents' room," Olivia protested. "It's been empty for 5 years," Elijah said quietly. "Better it gets some use." Abigail showed her to the room, which was clean and simply furnished with a bed, washstand, and chest of drawers. "I'll bring you some hot water for washing up. Supper will be ready in an hour." Left alone, Olivia sank onto the edge of the bed, the weight of the day crashing down on her. Edmund Walker was dead. Her careful plans were in ruins, and now she was dependent on the kindness of strangers, something her life had taught her was rarely offered without a price. When Abigail returned with the promised hot water, Olivia had composed herself. She washed away the dust of travel, wincing as the cloth passed over her bruises. "Those look painful," Abigail observed from the doorway. She entered, setting a small jar on the washstand. "This is arnica salve, good for bruises." "Thank you," Olivia said, her throat tight with unexpected emotion at the simple kindness. Abigail hesitated. "Whoever did that to you? They can't reach you here. Elijah wouldn't allow it." Before Olivia could respond, Abigail left, closing the door softly behind her. Alone once more, Olivia opened the jar and applied the salve to her bruises, wondering why a stranger's promise of protection felt more real than any she had received before. Supper was a simple affair of beef stew, fresh bread, and apple preserves. Olivia ate sparingly, her stomach unsettled after days of travel and emotional turmoil. Elijah and Abigail kept the conversation light, telling her about the ranch and the town, careful not to press her with questions. "How long have you been ranching here?" Olivia asked, eager to shift attention away from herself. 8 years, Elijah replied. "Came out after the war looking for something different. Our parents followed a year later and Abigail came with them." "The war?" Olivia asked, realizing he was older than she had initially thought. A shadow crossed his face. "Yes, madam, Union cavalry, don't talk about it much these days. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up painful memories." Elijah's expression softened. "No need to apologize, it's part of what made me who I am." He pushed back from the table. "If you'll excuse me, I need to check on a mare that's close to foaling." After he left, Abigail began clearing the dishes. Olivia rose to help her. "You don't have to do that," Abigail protested. "You must be exhausted." "I'd rather keep busy," Olivia admitted. "And I meant what I said to your brother about working. I won't be a charity case." Abigail studied her for a moment, then nodded. "We can always use an extra pair of hands around here. Can you cook?" "Yes, though I'm better at baking than cooking." "Perfect. I hate baking." Abigail smiled, the expression warming her practical face. "Can you ride?" "I had lessons as a child, but it's been many years." "We'll get you back in the saddle once you're feeling stronger. A woman needs to ride out here." As they washed dishes together, Olivia ventured a question that had been troubling her. "Your brother, he seems like a good man." "The best," Abigail confirmed without hesitation. "Then why has he never married? He must be." Olivia tried to guess his age. 34, Abigail supplied. "And he was engaged once, right after the war. Her name was Rebecca. She took pneumonia the winter before they were to be married." She dried a plate carefully before continuing. "He hasn't courted anyone since. Focuses on the ranch, on taking care of me, though I've told him 100 times I can take care of myself." Olivia absorbed this information, this glimpse into Elijah's past sorrows. "I'm sorry for his loss. For yours too." "Life out here can be hard," Abigail said simply. "But it can also heal if you let it." Later that night, lying in the unfamiliar bed, Olivia listened to the sounds of the ranch, so different from the city noises she was accustomed to. The distant lowing of cattle, the soft nickering of horses in the barn, the wind whispering through the trees along the creek. And underneath it all, a profound quiet that seemed to seep into her very bones. For the first time in months, she slept without fear. Morning brought the aroma of coffee and bacon. Olivia dressed in her plainest dress, determined to be useful. Her body ached less after a night of real rest, though the bruises still stood out starkly against her pale skin. She found Elijah alone in the kitchen, frying bacon in a cast-iron skillet. He glanced up at her entrance, his eyes widening slightly before he recovered. "Morning, Miss Thompson. Sleep well." "Yes, thank you, and please call me Olivia." He nodded, flipping the bacon with practiced ease. "Olivia, then. Coffee's hot if you'd like some." She poured herself a cup, adding a small amount of sugar from the bowl on the table. "Where's Abigail?" "Collecting eggs. She'll be back shortly." He transferred the bacon to a plate lined with cloth. "We usually eat a hearty breakfast. Days start early and run long on a ranch." "I'm afraid I'm not accustomed to ranch work," Olivia admitted, "but I'm willing to learn." Elijah glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. "No one expects you to jump right in. You need time to heal." The simple acknowledgement of her injuries, spoken without pity or judgment, nearly undid her. She busied herself with setting the table to hide the sudden moisture in her eyes. Abigail arrived with a basket of eggs, and soon they were seated around the table, plates laden with bacon, eggs, and biscuits left from the previous night. "I thought I'd show Olivia around the ranch today," Abigail said between bites. "Nothing strenuous, just get her oriented." "Good idea," Elijah agreed. "I'll be working with the new colts in the south pasture if you need me." He turned to Olivia. "Feel free to ask questions about anything. This is your home for as long as you need it to be." Your home. The words echoed in Olivia's mind as she watched him leave after breakfast. Not since her mother died 6 years ago had any place felt like home. The tour with Abigail was comprehensive but considerate of Olivia's strength. They visited the chicken coop, the vegetative garden, the smokehouse, and the springhouse where dairy and perishables were kept cool. They walked past the corrals where several horses watched them curiously, and Abigail pointed out the boundaries of the property. "It's not the biggest spread in the territory," she explained, "but it's good land. Elijah's worked hard to build it up." "He seems very dedicated," Olivia observed. "Sometimes to a fault," Abigail sighed. "He rarely takes time for himself." She led Olivia to a shady spot beneath a large cottonwood tree. "Let's rest a bit. You're looking tired." They sat on a bench that offered a view of the south pasture where Elijah worked with the horses. Even from a distance, Olivia could see his patience and skill as he moved among the young colts, his movements deliberate and gentle. "He has a way with horses," Abigail said, following Olivia's gaze. "Says they're honest creatures, they don't hide their feelings or intentions." "Unlike people," Olivia murmured. "Yes." Abigail turned to look at her directly. "Olivia, I hope you don't mind me asking, but do you have family back east who might be worried about you?" Olivia stiffened. "No one who matters." "I see." Abigail was quiet for a moment. "Whatever you're running from, you're safe here. Elijah meant what he said about this being your home for as long as you need." "Why are you both being so kind to me? You don't know me." "My brother has a strong sense of responsibility." Edmund was his friend, and in Elijah's mind, that makes you his responsibility now. Abigail smiled slightly. "And I admit, it's nice having another woman around. It gets lonely sometimes, just me and my brother." "I'm grateful," Olivia said softly, "more than I can express." "Show your gratitude by healing and finding your place here," Abigail replied. "That's all either of us wants." The days fell into a pattern. Olivia helped Abigail with household chores, gradually taking over more of the cooking and baking as her strength returned. The bruises faded, though the memories that accompanied them remained sharp. At night, she wrote in her journal, recording her new experiences and occasionally allowing herself to reflect on the past she had fled. Elijah was often busy with ranch work, but he joined them for meals and sometimes in the evenings when Abigail would read aloud from one of her novels or the newspaper that came once a week from town. He was unfailingly polite to Olivia, careful to give her space, yet she often caught him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite interpret. 2 weeks after her arrival, Olivia was kneading bread dough when Elijah entered the kitchen, his expression troubled. "Everything all right?" she asked, pausing in her work. "Just got word from town. There's a man asking questions about a woman matching your description. Says he's your fiancé come to find you." The dough slipped from Olivia's suddenly numb fingers. "Hamilton," she whispered, his name a curse on her lips. Elijah moved closer, his voice gentle but urgent. "Olivia, I need to know what we're dealing with. Who is this man, my stepfather's business partner?" Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "They arranged a marriage between us when I refused." She gestured vaguely at her now healed face. A muscle twitched in Elijah's jaw. "He did that to you. He said I needed to learn obedience before becoming his wife." Saying the words aloud made her feel ill. "I fled the night before the wedding was to take place. I had already been corresponding with Edmund Walker, it seemed, providential. And now this man has tracked you here." Elijah's voice had gone dangerously soft. "Did you legally agree to marry him? Is there any paper that binds you?" "No, I never signed anything. But Hamilton is a powerful man with connections. He doesn't take kindly to being denied what he wants." Elijah was quiet for a long moment, his blue eyes stormy. "He won't touch you again, I promise you that." He straightened, decision made. "I'll ride into town, see what I can learn about this man and his intentions." Fear clutched at Olivia's heart. "Be careful. Hamilton Davis is dangerous." "So am I, when provoked." The grim set of Elijah's mouth suggested he rarely made such statements. "Stay close to the house. Abigail knows how to use a rifle if needed." After he left, Olivia's hands trembled so badly she had to abandon the bread making. Abigail found her sitting at the kitchen table staring at nothing. "Elijah told me," she said, sitting beside Olivia, "we won't let this man take you. You don't understand. Hamilton always gets what he wants. Always." Olivia's voice broke. "I should leave. I'm putting you both in danger." "Nonsense. Where would you go? Back east where he has more power, further west where you know no one." Abigail covered Olivia's cold hands with her warm ones. "No, you stay right here where we can protect you." "Why would you risk yourselves for me?" Abigail's expression softened. "Because in the 2 weeks you've been here, you've become family, and family protects its own. Family." The word pierced Olivia's heart. She had forgotten what it felt like to belong. Elijah returned as the sun was setting, his expression unreadable as he entered the house. Olivia and Abigail had been sitting in tense silence, jumping at every sound. "Well," Abigail demanded, "he's staying at the hotel in town. Calls himself Hamilton Davis of Boston. Says he's searching for his fiancée who was kidnapped by a mail-order bride scheme." Elijah's tone made clear what he thought of this story. "He's offering a reward for information." "Did anyone tell him about me?" Olivia asked, her voice barely audible. "Not yet, as far as I can tell, but it won't take long in a town this size." Elijah sat heavily at the table. "I spoke with Sheriff Taylor, told him enough of the truth that he understands the situation. He's no friend to men who beat women, but his authority only extends so far." "What do we do?" Abigail asked. Elijah looked directly at Olivia. That depends on what you want, Olivia. If you want to run, I'll help you get somewhere safe. If you want to stay and fight, I'll stand with you. Olivia stared at him, this man who had become her protector without her ever asking. I'm tired of running, she said finally, but I don't know how to fight someone like Hamilton. We start by establishing your place here, Elijah said. Make it clear to everyone in town that you're under my protection. Legally. Legally, Abigail repeated, her brow furrowing. What are you suggesting, Elijah? He took a deep breath. I'm suggesting that Olivia and I get married. The silence that followed his words was profound. Olivia felt as though the air had been sucked from the room. That's not, you can't. She stammered. It would be a marriage of convenience, Elijah clarified quickly. On paper only. As my wife, you'd have my name and my protection. This Davis fellow would have no claim on you. Elijah, you can't just marry someone to solve a problem, Abigail protested. Why not? People marry for worse reasons. He turned back to Olivia. I'm not asking for anything from you except to let me help. Once this is resolved, if you want to go your own way, we can have the marriage annulled. Olivia's mind raced. The logical part of her recognized the practicality of his suggestion. As a married woman, she would have legal protection that was otherwise unavailable to her. Hamilton would have no legitimate claim, but marriage, even one of convenience, was no small matter. I need time to think, she said finally. Elijah nodded. Of course, but we may not have much time if Davis discovers your whereabouts. I understand. Olivia stood, suddenly needing to be alone. I'll have an answer for you in the morning. In her room, Olivia paced the floor, weighing her options. Marriage to Elijah would solve her immediate problem, but what then? Would she forever be beholden to him? Would he eventually expect a real marriage? And what of her own heart, which had begun to warm dangerously in his presence? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Abigail entered at her invitation, carrying a cup of tea. Thought you might need this, she said, handing Olivia the steaming cup. My brother can be direct when he's problem-solving. Olivia accepted the tea gratefully. He means well, he does. Abigail sat on the edge of the bed. For what it's worth, I think he's right about the marriage providing protection. But I want you to know that if you're uncomfortable with the idea, we'll find another way. What other way is there? Olivia sighed. Hamilton has money, connections, and a convincing story about a distraught fiancé searching for his lost love. Who would believe my word against his? We believe you, Abigail said simply, and there are others who would too. Olivia sat beside her, cradling the warm cup. Your brother, he's a good man. I wouldn't want to trap him in a loveless marriage. Is that what worries you? Abigail smiled slightly. Elijah has been alone a long time by choice. He's offering you a solution, not a sacrifice. And you, how would you feel about having me as a sister-in-law, even just on paper? I already think of you as a sister, Abigail said, surprising Olivia with a quick hug. Whatever you decide, that won't change. After Abigail left, Olivia stood at the window, gazing out at the star-filled sky. Freedom had seemed so close when she boarded that stagecoach in Boston. Now, once again, her choices were being constrained by circumstances beyond her control. Yet this time was different. This time she wasn't alone. Morning found Olivia in the kitchen before dawn, baking bread and thinking. When Elijah entered, she had her answer ready. Yes, she said simply. I'll marry you. He paused in the doorway, studying her face. You're certain? As certain as I can be, given the circumstances. She brushed flour from her hands. But I have conditions. A small smile touched his lips. I expected nothing less. Name them. First, this is temporary. Once Hamilton is no longer a threat, we can seek an annulment. Elijah nodded. Agreed. Second, I maintain my independence. I'm not looking to be controlled by another man, even one with good intentions. I wouldn't want that either, he assured her. What else? Olivia hesitated. I want to continue working alongside Abigail, learning ranch skills. If I'm to make my way in this territory, I need to be capable. That's sensible. Elijah moved further into the kitchen, pouring himself coffee. Anything else? Just one more thing. I want honesty between us. No matter what happens, we tell each other the truth. His blue eyes met hers, serious and steady. I've never been much for lying, Olivia. You'll always get the truth from me, she nodded, satisfied. Then we have an agreement. We do. He sipped his coffee. I'll ride into town today, speak with the preacher about performing a ceremony tomorrow. So soon? The sooner we establish your position as my wife, the better protected you'll be. He set down his cup. Unless you need more time, Olivia shook her head. No, tomorrow is fine. The day passed in a flurry of preparations. Abigail insisted on making Olivia a new dress from fabric she had been saving, working swiftly with needle and thread. By evening, a simple but elegant blue dress hung ready for the morning. It matches your eyes, Abigail said, standing back to admire her work. And brings out the gold in your hair. It's beautiful, Olivia said, touching the soft fabric. I don't know how to thank you. Just be happy, Abigail replied. Or at least find some peace here. That's thanks enough. When Elijah returned, he brought news that made Olivia's blood run cold. Davis was asking specific questions about Edmund Walker's mail-order bride today, he reported grimly. It won't be long before someone makes the connection. How soon? Olivia asked, fear clawing at her throat. A day, maybe two. Elijah's expression was resolute. Reverend Collins will perform the ceremony at 10 tomorrow morning. I've asked Sheriff Taylor to be a witness. The sheriff? Abigail questioned. I want this marriage officially documented and witnessed by the law, Elijah explained. No room for Davis to claim it was improper or coerced. That night, Olivia could not sleep. She stood by her window, watching the moonlight paint the landscape in silver. Tomorrow she would be Olivia Hastings, wife to a man she barely knew. A man who had offered her protection without hesitation, who looked at her bruises with righteous anger rather than disgust. A man she was beginning to care for far more than was wise, given the temporary nature of their arrangement. Dawn broke clear and bright, as if the day knew its own significance. Abigail helped Olivia dress and arranged her golden brown hair in a simple but elegant style, securing it with combs adorned with small blue flowers. Something borrowed, she explained, tucking the last comb in place. They were our mother's. Olivia touched the combs gently. I'll take good care of them. I know you will. Abigail stepped back, her eyes suspiciously bright. You look beautiful, Olivia, truly. The ride to town was quiet, tension humming between the three occupants of the wagon. Elijah had dressed in his best clothes, a dark suit that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders and the lean strength of his frame. He kept his eyes on the road, his expression unreadable. Willow Creek seemed to hold its breath as they made their way to the small white church at the end of the main street. Curious eyes followed their progress, and whispers trailed in their wake. Reverend Collins waited for them on the church steps, a kindly older man with silver hair and a gentle smile. Sheriff Taylor stood beside him, his weathered face solemn. Miss Thompson, the Reverend greeted her. Mr. Hastings explained your situation. I want you to know that you have the church's support. Thank you, Reverend, Olivia murmured, touched by his acceptance. The ceremony itself was brief but dignified. Standing before the altar, Olivia spoke her vows in a clear voice, promising to honor and respect the man beside her. When Elijah slipped a simple gold band onto her finger, his mother's, He had explained earlier his hands were steady and warm around hers. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," Reverend Collins declared. "What God has joined together, let no man put asunder." Elijah bent to place a chaste kiss on Olivia's lips, his touch gentle and fleeting. It was their first physical contact beyond steadying hands or accidental brushes, and Olivia felt it like a lightning strike through her body. They signed the marriage certificate with Sheriff Taylor and Reverend Collins as witnesses. The document was official, irrefutable evidence of their union. "Congratulations, Mrs. Hastings," Sheriff Taylor said, shaking her hand. "If you have any trouble with unwanted visitors, you let me know." As they exited the church, Olivia's newly sharpened senses detected a stillness in the street. Standing across from the church, watching with cold eyes, was a tall, elegantly dressed man with silver at his temples. Hamilton Davis. Olivia froze, her hand tightening involuntarily on Elijah's arm. He followed her gaze, his body tensing beside her. "That's him," she whispered. Without a word, Elijah guided her down the church steps, Abigail following close behind. Sheriff Taylor, sensing the tension, moved to intercept Davis before he could approach. "Mr. Davis," the sheriff said loudly enough for all to hear. "I understand you're looking for a missing woman. As you can see, the only woman here is Mrs. Hastings, who has just been married in the presence of witnesses, including myself." Davis's cold eyes never left Olivia's face. "That woman is Olivia Thompson. She is my fiancée, and she is coming back to Boston with me." "No, sir," Sheriff Taylor corrected. "That is Mrs. Olivia Hastings, legally married to Elijah Hastings of Willow Creek." He patted the pocket containing the marriage certificate. "I have the documentation right here." Davis took a step forward, his face contorting with fury. "She was promised to me. We had an agreement. Did you now?" Elijah's voice was dangerously soft as he positioned himself slightly in front of Olivia. "Strange, since my wife tells me she never agreed to marry you. Your wife," Davis spat the word, "is a liar and a thief. She stole money from me before she ran." "That's not true," Olivia said, finding her voice at last. "The money was my mother's inheritance, which you and my stepfather tried to control." A small crowd had begun to gather, drawn by the confrontation. Davis looked around, realizing he was losing the public opinion battle. "This isn't over," he said, his voice low with menace. "A hastily arranged marriage won't protect you, Olivia. I have powerful friends." "So do I," Elijah replied evenly. "And unlike yours, mine are right here." He gestured to the townspeople who had gathered, many nodding in agreement. "My wife is staying right where she belongs with me." Sheriff Taylor stepped between them. "Mr. Davis, I suggest you return to your hotel and reconsider your position. This is a legally binding marriage, performed in good faith with proper witnesses. Any attempt to interfere would be a crime." For a long moment, Hamilton looked as though he might argue further. Then, with a final venomous look at Olivia, he turned and stalked away. "He won't give up that easily," Olivia said quietly as they walked to the wagon. "No," Elijah agreed, "but neither will we." The ride back to the ranch was tense, all three lost in their own thoughts. When they arrived, Elijah helped Olivia down from the wagon, his hands lingering briefly at her waist. "Welcome home, Mrs. Hastings," he said, his voice carrying a warmth that made her heart skip. That evening, after a quiet celebratory dinner prepared by Abigail, Elijah escorted Olivia to her room, still the same one she had been using, a detail they had agreed upon in advance. "I'll sleep in the barn for a few days," he said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "In case Davis decides to pay us a visit, I want to be near the horses." "You don't have to do that," Olivia protested. "Your loft is perfectly suitable." Maybe so, but I'd feel better being closer to the ground. He hesitated. Olivia, I want you to know that I meant what I said in the church today. I will honor and respect you for however long this marriage lasts. She studied his face, this man who was now her husband in name if not in fact. I believe you, she said softly. And I meant my vows too, Elijah. Something flickered in his eyes, hope perhaps, or simple satisfaction. Good night then, sleep well. Good night. Husband, the word felt strange on her tongue, yet not as foreign as she might have expected. As she prepared for bed, Olivia caught sight of the gold band on her finger, gleaming in the lamplight. A token of protection, nothing more, she reminded herself. Yet as she drifted towards sleep, she could not help but wonder what it might be like if this marriage were real, if the gentle man who had come to her rescue might someday look at her with more than protective concern in his eyes. 3 days passed without incident. Olivia began to hope that perhaps Hamilton had accepted defeat and returned east. Then, on the 4th morning after their wedding, a rider approached the ranch. Elijah met the man in the yard, his stance wary but not hostile. Olivia watched from the kitchen window as they spoke, the stranger handing over what appeared to be an official document. When Elijah entered the house, his expression was grim. "What is it?" Olivia asked, fear clutching at her heart. "Davis has filed a legal challenge to our marriage," he said, placing the document on the table. "Claims you were already contracted to marry him and that I coerced you." Abigail, who had been mending by the fire, set aside her work. "Can he do that? He can try." Elijah ran a hand through his hair. "The judge has ordered us to appear in court in Prescott next week to address the petition. Prescott is the territorial capital," Abigail explained to Olivia. 2 days' journey from here." Olivia sank into a chair, her legs suddenly weak. "Will they? Could they annul our marriage?" "Not without cause," Elijah assured her, "and not without hearing both sides. Davis is counting on his money and influence to sway the judge, but we have truth on our side." "Truth doesn't always prevail," Olivia said bitterly. Memories of Boston society's willingness to overlook Hamilton's cruelty still fresh. "It will this time." Elijah's voice was firm with conviction. "We'll leave for Prescott the day after tomorrow. Best to arrive early, get our bearings before the hearing." The journey to Prescott was arduous, the trail winding through rugged terrain that tested both horses and riders. Elijah had insisted that Olivia learn to ride in the weeks since her arrival, and now she was grateful for those lessons as she followed him on a gentle mare named Daisy. They stayed at small way station inns along the route, Olivia and Abigail sharing a room while Elijah slept near the stables. Despite the circumstances, Olivia found herself enjoying aspects of the journey, the breathtaking vistas, the camaraderie of the trail, the evenings spent talking around the fire. Prescott itself was larger and more developed than Willow Creek, boasting brick buildings, a proper hotel, and the territorial courthouse. They secured rooms at a modest hotel, and Elijah went immediately to find a lawyer who might advise them. He returned looking cautiously optimistic. "I spoke with a Mr. Reeves who comes highly recommended. He believes our case is strong, especially given the witness of the sheriff and reverend." "But," Olivia prompted, sensing his reservation, "but Davis has hired the most expensive lawyer in the territory. And he's been here 2 days already, speaking with the judge and other influential citizens." Abigail frowned. "That hardly seems fair." "It isn't," Elijah agreed, "but it's the reality we're facing." The hearing was scheduled for 10 o'clock the following morning. Olivia barely slept the night before, tossing and turning beside a similarly restless Abigail. "What if they rule in his favor?" she whispered into the darkness. "What if they force me to go with him? Elijah won't let that happen, Abigail assured her. Neither will I. The territorial courthouse was imposing, built of solid stone with tall columns flanking the entrance. Inside, the courtroom was already crowded when they arrived, curious spectators drawn by the unusual case. Hamilton Davis sat at the front with his lawyer, a distinguished-looking man in an expensive suit. He turned as they entered, his cold eyes meeting Olivia's with a look of triumphant malice that made her shiver. Mr. Reeves, their lawyer, was waiting for them, a younger man with intelligent eyes and a determined set to his jaw. Mrs. Hastings, Mr. Hastings, he greeted them. Will be called shortly. Remember what we discussed. Stick to the facts. Stay calm no matter what accusations are made. Judge Harmon, a stern-faced man with a full beard and piercing eyes, entered and called the court to order. The proceedings began with Davis's lawyer presenting their petition. Your Honor, my client, Mr. Hamilton Davis of Boston, Massachusetts, was engaged to marry Miss Olivia Thompson. They had a formal understanding, approved by her stepfather, who stands as her legal guardian. Before the wedding could take place, Miss Thompson fled, taking with her a substantial sum of money belonging to my client. The lawyer went on to paint a picture of a confused young woman, manipulated by strangers into an improper marriage to avoid her rightful obligations. Olivia felt sick listening to the distortions and outright lies. When it was their turn, Mr. Reeves presented their case with eloquence and conviction. Your Honor, Mrs. Hastings is a grown woman of 22, not a minor subject to guardianship. She came west of her own free will to marry Mr. Edmund Walker, who unfortunately passed away before her arrival. She subsequently entered into a legal marriage with Mr. Elijah Hastings, performed by Reverend Collins and witnessed by Sheriff Taylor of Willow Creek. He then called Sheriff Taylor, who had made the journey to Prescott at Elijah's request, to testify about the legitimacy of the marriage and his observations of the couple. The ceremony was proper in every way, Your Honor, the sheriff stated firmly, and I observed no signs of coercion. Mrs. Hastings spoke her vows clearly and willingly. Davis's lawyer cross-examined him aggressively. And did you know Mrs. Hastings or Miss Thompson, as she was then prior to this hasty ceremony? No, sir, I did not. So you cannot speak to her state of mind or whether she was acting under duress or false information. Sheriff Taylor's eyes narrowed. I've been a lawman for 20 years, Counselor. I know the difference between a willing bride and one under duress. Next, Mr. Reeves called Olivia herself to testify. With trembling legs but a steady voice, she took the stand and swore to tell the truth. Mrs. Hastings, did you have a formal engagement to Mr. Davis? Reeves asked. No, sir. My stepfather and Mr. Davis arranged a marriage between us without my consent. When I refused, Mr. Davis, she hesitated, then continued, her voice stronger. Mr. Davis struck me repeatedly, saying I needed to learn obedience before becoming his wife. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Judge Harmon called for order. Can you prove these allegations of violence? He asked. The bruises have healed, Your Honor, Olivia replied. But there are witnesses in Boston who saw my conditioned servants in my stepfather's house, a doctor who treated me. Convenient that none of these witnesses are present, Davis's lawyer interjected. Indeed, the judge agreed, looking troubled. Mrs. Hastings, regarding the money Mr. Davis claims you took, what do you say to that? The money was my inheritance from my mother, held in trust until my 21st birthday, Olivia explained. When I came of age last year, I requested it be transferred to my control, as was my legal right. Mr. Davis and my stepfather refused, saying I would receive it after my marriage. I eventually located the bank documents and withdrew what was rightfully mine before leaving Boston. Davis's lawyer rose. Your Honor, we have documentation showing that the funds in question were part of a business arrangement between Mr. Davis and Mr. Thompson, not an inheritance. He presented papers to the judge, who examined them with a frown. Olivia felt a chill of dread. She had no way to disprove their forgeries. Next, Elijah was called to testify. He cut an impressive figure on the stand, his quiet dignity and straightforward manner seeming to impress the judge. Mr. Hastings, what prompted you to marry a woman you had known for only a few weeks? The judge asked. Elijah met his gaze steadily. When Olivia arrived in Willow Creek, she was bruised and frightened. She had come to marry my neighbor, Edmund Walker, who had passed away. I offered her shelter as any decent man would do. As we came to know each other, I developed a deep respect for her courage and character. When we learned that Mr. Davis was searching for her, claiming rights he did not have, I offered marriage as protection, yes, but also because I had come to care for her. The simplicity and apparent sincerity of his statement seemed to resonate with the courtroom. Olivia stared at him, wondering how much of what he said was strategy and how much was truth. Davis's lawyer attempted to paint Elijah as an opportunist who had taken advantage of a vulnerable woman. But Elijah's calm responses and unwavering gaze undermined these efforts. Finally, Hamilton Davis himself took the stand, portraying himself as a concerned fiancé searching for his misguided beloved. His practiced charm and polished manner made a stark contrast to Elijah's frontier directness. I only want what's best for Olivia, he said, his voice dripping with false concern. She was distraught over her mother's death, not thinking clearly. This impulsive marriage to a stranger is evidence of her confused state. Judge Harmon listened to all testimony carefully, his expression giving away nothing of his thoughts. When both sides had presented their cases, he called for a recess to consider his ruling. The wait was excruciating. Olivia, Elijah, and Abigail sat in a small anteroom, too tense for conversation. When they were finally called back, the courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath. Judge Harmon cleared his throat. This is a most unusual case, with claims that are difficult to verify given the distance from the events in question. However, I must rule based on the evidence before me. He looked directly at Olivia. Mrs. Hastings, while I find Mr. Davis's claim of engagement troubling given your denial, the documentation regarding the disputed funds is concerning. It appears there may be a legitimate financial matter to resolve. Olivia's heart sank. Hamilton would use any financial claim to force her return to Boston. However, the judge continued, the marriage between you and Mr. Hastings appears to be legal and properly conducted. I find no evidence of coercion or fraud that would justify annulment. Relief flooded through Olivia. Beside her, Elijah released a breath he seemed to have been holding. My ruling is as follows. The marriage of Elijah and Olivia Hastings stands as legal and binding. Regarding the financial dispute, Mr. Davis may pursue this as a separate civil matter, but it has no bearing on the marriage contract. Davis shot to his feet. This is outrageous. She belongs to me, Mr. Davis. Judge Harmon's voice cracked like a whip. Women are not property in this territory or any other part of the United States. One more outburst, and I'll have you held in contempt. Hamilton subsided, his face livid with rage. His eyes found Olivia's across the courtroom, a promise of retribution in their depths. Court is adjourned, the judge declared, bringing down his gavel with finality. Outside the courthouse, Mr. Reeves shook their hands. Congratulations. Though I must warn you, Mr. Davis seems the type to hold a grudge. I wouldn't be surprised if he pursues the financial claim." "Let him try," Elijah said grimly. "We'll be ready." They had taken only a few steps toward their hotel when Hamilton intercepted them, his lawyer hovering anxiously behind him. "You may have won today, Olivia, but this isn't over," he said, his voice low and menacing. "One way or another, I'll get what's mine." Elijah stepped forward, placing himself between Hamilton and Olivia. "I think you've said enough, Davis. My wife has nothing that belongs to you. We'll see about that." Hamilton's gaze shifted to Elijah, hatred plain in his eyes. "Enjoy your stolen bride while you can, Cowboy. Men like you don't keep what they take from men like me." "Is that a threat?" Elijah's voice had gone dangerously quiet, just a fact of life. Hamilton adjusted his expensive coat. "I'm returning to Boston for now, but don't think this is finished." "Not by a long shot." He turned and walked away, his lawyer hurrying after him. "He'll be back," Olivia said softly, "or he'll send someone. He never gives up when his pride is wounded." Elijah took her hand, his touch steadying her. "Then we'll be ready when he comes, together." The word hung between them, a promise more binding than their hasty vows had been. They left Prescott the following morning, eager to return to the ranch and the normal rhythms of life there. The journey home seemed shorter somehow, lightened by their legal victory and the temporary absence of threat. As they crested the final hill overlooking the Double H Ranch, Elijah reined his horse to a stop beside Olivia's. "Home," he said simply. Olivia gazed down at the ranch house, the barn, the corrals and pastures spread below. In the late afternoon light it looked peaceful, welcoming, a place where she might belong. "Yes," she agreed softly. "Home." Something shifted between them on that homeward journey, a subtle change in the air. In the way Elijah looked at her when he thought she wouldn't notice. In the way she found herself seeking his company in the quiet evenings. Life settled into a new pattern. Olivia took on more responsibilities around the ranch, learning to help with the cattle as well as maintaining the household alongside Abigail. She discovered a talent for bookkeeping, and Elijah gratefully turned over the ranch accounts to her more organized hands. They maintained separate sleeping quarters, honoring the original terms of their arrangement, but in all other ways they functioned as a true married couple making decisions together, sharing meals and conversation, building a partnership based on growing respect and trust. Weeks passed without word from Hamilton Davis. As summer bloomed across the rangeland, Olivia allowed herself to hope that perhaps he had truly given up his pursuit. One evening in late June, Olivia sat on the porch, enjoying the cooler air after a scorching day. Elijah joined her, carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. "Thought you might be thirsty," he said, handing her one. "Thank you." She smiled up at him, noting the sun streaks in his hair, the deepening tan of his face. He looked healthy, vital, a man in his element. "The new calves are growing fast." "They are." He settled beside her on the porch step. "Abigail says you're becoming quite the horsewoman." "I enjoy riding," Olivia admitted. "There's a freedom to it I never experienced in Boston." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun sink toward the distant mountains. "Olivia," Elijah said finally, his voice hesitant in a way that was unusual for him. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you." Her heart skipped a beat. "Yes, these past months since you came here, they've been good, better than good." He turned to look at her directly. "I know our marriage was arranged for protection, but I find myself wondering if you might consider making it real." Olivia stared at him, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "Real? Yes." His blue eyes were earnest, vulnerable in a way she had never seen before. "I care for you, Olivia, more than I expected to. More than I've cared for anyone since Rebecca died, and sometimes I hope that you might feel something for me too." The admission hung between them, honest and unadorned. Olivia's heart raced. She had been guarding her growing feelings so carefully, afraid to hope for more than the safe haven she had found. "I do," she whispered. "I do feel something for you, Elijah, but I'm afraid." "Of what?" "Of believing in something good only to have it taken away. Of Hamilton returning to destroy what we've built." She looked down at her hands. "Of not being enough for you once the novelty wears off." Elijah reached out, gently lifting her chin until their eyes met. "Olivia Hastings, you are more than enough. You're strong and brave and kind. You've brought life back to this ranch and to me." His voice dropped lower. "As for Hamilton Davis, let him come. We'll face him together as we promised." He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. Instead, Olivia closed the distance between them, their lips meeting in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened with months of unspoken longing. When they finally parted, both breathless, Elijah rested his forehead against hers. "Is that a yes?" Olivia laughed, a sound of pure joy. "Yes, Elijah. Yes." That night, for the first time, they shared the master bedroom as true husband and wife. Their coming together was tender and passionate, a culmination of the trust and care that had grown between them. Afterward, lying in Elijah's arms, Olivia felt a peace she had never known before. "I never thought I could feel this way," she murmured against his chest, safe and wanted at the same time. His arms tightened around her. "You'll always be both with me." In the morning, they shared their decision with Abigail, who responded with a knowing smile and a warm embrace for them both. "It's about time," she said, her eyes twinkling. "I was beginning to think I'd need to lock you two in the barn together." Life took on a sweeter quality after that night. The ranch prospered under their combined efforts, and Olivia found herself imagining a future filled with children and growth and love. Even the specter of Hamilton Davis began to fade from her thoughts as summer turned to fall with no word from Boston. Then, in early October, the letter arrived. It came with the regular mail delivery, addressed to Mrs. Olivia Hastings in an elegant hand she recognized immediately. Her stepfather's. With trembling fingers, she broke the seal and read, "My dear Olivia, I write with news that may bring you some peace. Hamilton Davis died 3 weeks ago following a riding accident. His neck was broken, death instantaneous. Before you harbor suspicions, I assure you it was witnessed by several prominent members of Boston society, including myself. A tragic accident, nothing more. With his passing, the matter of your supposed debt is closed. His family has no interest in pursuing it. I make no apologies for my part in arranging your marriage to him. I believed it a good match. However, I will acknowledge that perhaps I did not fully understand the man's character. Your mother would be pleased, I think, to know you have found your own path. I do not expect forgiveness, nor do I ask for it. I merely wish to close this chapter between us. The house in Boston remains your inheritance when I am gone. Until then, I wish you well in your new life. Your stepfather, Jonathan Thompson." Olivia sat heavily at the kitchen table, the letter clutched in her hand. Elijah found her there, tears streaming down her face. "Olivia, what's wrong?" He knelt beside her chair, concern etched on his features. Wordlessly, she handed him the letter. He read it quickly, his expression changing from worry to disbelief to cautious relief. "He's dead," he said finally. "Davis is dead." "Yes." Olivia wiped at her tears. "I don't know why I'm crying. I hated him." "You're crying because it's over," Elijah said gently. "Because you're finally free of the fear." He was right, she realized. The tears were not for Hamilton Davis, but for the burden of dread she had carried for so long, now suddenly lifted. "What happens now?" she asked, looking up at her husband, her real husband now in every sense. Elijah smiled, taking her hands in his. Now we live, Olivia. We build our ranch, our family, our future, without shadows. That winter was the happiest of Olivia's life. The ranch house felt truly like home, filled with warmth and laughter despite the snow that sometimes isolated them for days. She and Elijah grew closer with each passing week, their love deepening from the initial spark into something steady and enduring. In January, she missed her monthly courses. By February, she was certain. "Elijah," she said one evening as they sat before the fire, his arm around her shoulders. "I have something to tell you." He looked down at her, his eyes crinkling at the corners in the way she loved. "What is it?" "We're going to have a baby." His face transformed with wonder and joy. "A baby, you're sure?" "Yes." She guided his hand to her still flat stomach. "By late summer, we'll be 3. Elijah whooped with delight, lifting her carefully from the chair to spin her in a gentle circle. "A baby," he repeated, his voice filled with awe. "Our baby." Abigail, hearing the commotion, rushed in from the kitchen. When they shared the news, she burst into happy tears, hugging them both. "I'm going to be an aunt," she exclaimed. "Oh, this house needs a child. It's been too quiet for too long." Spring brought new calves, fresh green grass across the range, and the gentle rounding of Olivia's belly. She bloomed with her pregnancy, her skin glowing, her heart full. Elijah was attentive to her every need. Though careful not to hover too much, he had quickly learned that his independent wife did not appreciate being treated as fragile. In May, a letter arrived from Olivia's stepfather, containing a bank draft for a substantial sum. "Your mother always intended this for your children," he wrote. "Consider it my attempt at amends." After much discussion, they decided to accept the money, setting it aside for their child's future and for improvements to the ranch that would benefit generations to come. Summer arrived, hot and bright across the rangeland. Olivia's belly grew round and full, the baby active within her. Elijah took to talking to her stomach each night, telling their unborn child stories about the ranch and promises of adventures to come. On a scorching August afternoon, Olivia's labor began. Abigail sent one of the ranch hands galloping for the midwife in town while she and Elijah helped Olivia to bed. "You're doing wonderfully," Elijah assured her, wiping her brow with a cool cloth. "You're the strongest woman I know." 14 hours later, as dawn broke over the eastern hills, their daughter entered the world with a lusty cry that brought tears to her father's eyes. "She's perfect," the midwife declared, placing the swaddled infant in Olivia's arms. "Strong and healthy." Exhausted but radiant, Olivia gazed down at their child, a tiny replica of Elijah with wisps of golden hair and eyes that would surely turn his shade of blue. "Eleanor," she said softly, "after your mother." Elijah, seated on the edge of the bed, reached out to touch his daughter's tiny hand. "Eleanor Hastings, it's a fine name." He looked up at Olivia, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Thank you for our daughter, for our family." "Our family," Olivia echoed, the words still miraculous to her. From a battered, desperate mail-order bride to a beloved wife and mother, the journey seemed impossible, yet here she was. Abigail joined them, cooing over her niece with unabashed delight. "She has the Hastings chin, don't you think? Strong and stubborn." "God help us all," Elijah laughed. "A stubborn woman in the Hastings house. However will we manage?" "You'll manage just fine," Olivia said, smiling up at her husband. "You've had plenty of practice with me." As baby Eleanor was passed to her aunt for a cuddle, Elijah leaned down to kiss Olivia tenderly. "I wouldn't have it any other way, Mrs. Hastings. Not for all the gold in California." In the years that followed, the Double H Ranch prospered and grew. Eleanor was joined by 2 brothers, James and William, and eventually by a surprise sister, Grace. when Alina was 10. The Hastings children grew up strong and free on the rangeland, learning the ways of the West from their father and the social graces of the East from their mother. Abigail remained with them until Alina was 5, when she surprised everyone by marrying the new schoolteacher in Willow Creek. She moved to town but visited often, her children playing with their cousins across the ranch lands. Olivia never returned to Boston, though she maintained a cordial correspondence with her stepfather until his death. The house he left her was sold, the proceeds invested in education funds for the children and in modernizing the ranch. Sometimes on quiet evenings when the children were asleep, Olivia would sit on the porch with Elijah, his arm around her shoulders, and marvel at the journey that had brought her to this place, this life, this love. "You ever regret it?" she asked him once. Offering marriage to a bruised and broken stranger, Elijah considered the question with his usual thoughtfulness. "I regret that you suffered," he said finally. "I regret that you had to flee your home and family, but I will never, not for one moment, regret that you came into my life." He turned to her, the love of 15 years strong in his eyes. "You were never just a mail-order bride to me, Olivia. From the moment I saw you, you were the beginning of everything good." As the sun set over their land, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Olivia leaned into her husband's embrace, complete in a way she had once thought impossible. "You're safe in my arms," he had promised her that first day, and she was. She always would be.